Okay, class, chapter 3 video or part 1 under the new edition, the 11th edition of the textbook. In the old textbook, this would have been chapter 5. Okay, so we're talking about ethics in business, and I'm going to start off by telling you that ethics is defined as the study of what constitutes right or wrong behavior. It's a set of moral principles or moral values for deciding between right and wrong. It's a branch of philosophy focusing on morality, and waived oral principles are derived to implement it. That is wrong. I'm going to have to fix that. It has to do with fairness, justice, rightness, or wrongness of an action. So you get the idea of what ethics is. All right, so I want to start off by saying that this is probably one of the most difficult chapters for me to teach. I have spent an enormous amount of time thinking about this subject, and in order to explain to you why it's so difficult, let me give you an example that I thought of. Okay, suppose you're a business person, and suppose you own a store, okay, and you have a number of employees working for you. You only sell in your store one item, okay. Now, you want to pay your workers a living wage, which you've determined based upon research to be $15 per hour. Okay, if you do it, if you pay them $15 an hour, in order to make a reasonable profit and to carry on your business, you would have to raise your current prices for this object that you sell by 20%. Okay, if you do that, you're going to probably go out of business, because 2 blocks away there's a business that sells the same item that you're selling, and they're selling it for 20% less, or what you're selling yours for now, without raising your salaries to $15 an hour. And the reason they can sell it for 20% less is because they're paying their workers minimum wage. Okay, so minimum wage is all that's required by the law. You're not breaking any law to pay your workers minimum wage and to be competitive with the guy down the block and to remain in business. However, the question becomes, is that ethical? Is it ethical to employ somebody and not pay them a living wage? I would say that many people, if not most, would say it's not ethical, or at least it's close to not being ethical. The problem is, and my problem is, in a business world, in a capitalistic society, when you have these situations, which is mostly what we're talking about in business ethics, where ethics bumps up against profit, okay, and staying in business, business people can't realistically choose what may be ethical or more ethical if it's going to put them out of business, or close to putting them out of business. Okay, so that's oftentimes what comes up. And the reason that is because I believe most people want to do the ethical thing. Okay, and so the ethical dilemmas that occur in the business world are where doing what you would like to do because you believe it to be ethical may not be, quote, possible in an economic capitalistic society. Okay, that's my opinion, and why I have such a difficult time with what they call business ethics. Okay, so it looks at the decisions that businesses may have to make and whether they are right or wrong. Again, the question is right or wrong ethically, or right or wrong legally. Okay, it's easy if it's legal and it's ethical and it doesn't cause your business any economic harm. It's where you have that harm situation that becomes problematic. Okay, so here we look at the difference between regular ethics and business ethics. And remember that ethics and law are two different things. Sometimes they are not. For example, in the legal profession, the legal profession has adopted a code of professional ethics. Okay, now, it's not exactly illegal to violate one of those code of ethics. You're not going to go to jail in most situations, but you could lose your license to practice law, or you could be sanctioned. So in the legal field, at least, the ethics do carry some punishment beyond a moral kind of recrimination, so to speak. Okay, so why does your author say business ethics is important? Traditionally, the only goal or duty of a corporation was to maximize profits, and I would substitute for corporation business, because I think that's the idea behind business. Today, many people view this idea as greedy or inhumane, but the rationale for profit maximization theory is still valid. So the question is, can you operate a business 100% ethical and still maintain your business? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so we talked about the relationship between law and ethics. The laws do not or cannot codify all ethical requirements and choose not to do so. Now, one of the problems I have with the textbook is a lot of the examples that the author gives you, when you look at it, what he purports to be an ethical dilemma or an ethical violation is actually a legal violation. So in my view, if it's illegal, you don't even have to get to the ethical question because you shouldn't be doing it. But the looking at business ethics has increased dramatically in the 1980s and 1990s, primarily because of situations like Enron, the Valdez situation, a lot of the brokerage issues like Bernie Madoff and things like that, where people have done things that were unethical. In many cases, they were illegal as well. So a lot of companies have adopted private ethical codes, how they expect their employees to operate. The reason that they do that may be altruistic, that is that they want to do something good for society. Another reason is that they want to present themselves as an ethical business so people will do business with them. So as it says, and we said already, ethics goes beyond legal requirements. Okay, so where do these ethics come from? Okay, so they may come from religion, they may come from virtue, they may come from what we may consider natural law, or they may come from what's sometimes called the categorical imperative, that one should act morally because it is the right thing to do without any ulterior motive. So that's where ethics can come from in most situations. Okay. Other ways that it can come from is the consequences-based approach. An action is ethically sound if it produces positive results or the least harm to the most people. The contract-based approach, people must negotiate their own ethical principles themselves. Principles of rights, the key factor in determining whether a business decision is ethical is how that decision affects the rights of others. And then outcome-based ethics or utilitarianism that looks at the impacts of decisions that attempt to maximize benefits and minimize harms. Now, I think that there's also a big difference when we talk about business ethics between the owner of a business and an employee, okay? Because they're different considerations. For example, a lot of the emphasis today on business ethics are things like should an employee take pens from the office to use at home. Okay, now again, I'm torn because I don't see that as an ethical issue primarily. I see that as a legal issue. You're stealing. Okay, but that's an example that's often given. So the problem with the utilitarian approach, as it says here, is that oftentimes an action that produces the greatest good for the most people may not be the most ethical thing. Now, there's also been adopted this concept of corporate social responsibility. Again, that's a situation similar to what we were talking about before, where a business adopts its own code of ethics. It involves a broader base identification of important business and social issues and a critique of business organizations and practices. It combines a commitment to good citizenship with commitments making ethical decisions, improving society, and minimizing environmental impact. Okay. Here you see what we talked about before, and an expansion of it, some of the theories of social responsibility. Okay, so the first one basically comes again from the Chicago School of Economics, and it goes by the view that maximizing profits is the only consideration for a business, and that is not bad, it is good. In other words, in their theory, anytime you follow this rule of greed is good, the outcome is going to be good, and you don't have to worry about ethics because it's a capitalistic system and it fixes itself. Okay? And your goal is to maximize your profits for your shareholders or your owners. Another theory is stakeholder interest. In this situation, you consider the interest of all stakeholders, not only your shareholders, but your employees, your customers, your suppliers, your creditors, and the local community. And then corporate citizenship is your social responsibility is to do well and solve social problems. Some argue that for a corporation, that's a requirement because corporations exist only because they serve some public good. I'm not sure that most corporations follow that creed. Okay. Other theories just follow the law, which is that if you follow the law, you're doing the ethical thing because they're one and the same. Because government represents the aggregate moral views of the public. The other is social responsibility, a little bit of what we looked at just a few minutes ago. Okay, we talked about profit maximization and as an economic theory and an ethical theory. All right, I'm going to stop there and we'll pick up with the next video.